still making on you as an adult. It may be her need, her excessive need for attention, her overbearing expectations, her emotional manipulations, her inappropriate remarks or criticisms to you or to members of your family, her unwillingness to release you, or an unwillingness to acknowledge who you are now. She's living in kind of a time warp, a time-locked perspective, and you're still a boy in her perspective, and you don't want to be anymore. Your plan must address those specific items, the ones that are troubling to you, with a specific application. Secondly, this plan should establish what I call time-tested boundaries to how you and Mom will interact in the future. It's not just saying what the issue is, but you're going to draw some boundaries now to say how we're going to now interact in the future. You're going to establish those boundaries. Not her. And you're going to enforce them. The challenge, though, is to establish lines that allow you to continue to honor the fifth commandment, which says, honor your father and your mother. So whatever boundary you draw, it should be healthy for you and honoring to her. So you need to ask with the counsel of other men, is this boundary I'm proposing, is it too tight or is it too loose? Is it clear? Does it still honor my mom and our relationship? Is it fair to both of us in light of our situation? Third, this plan should include clear consequences attached to boundary violations. Once you've got that plan, it's clear, it's fair. It should have clear consequences if she violates those boundaries. You might say to your mom, if you talk to my wife Mary about this anymore, if you keep telling her how to raise our son Josh, if you do, Mom, you're going to have to leave. That's the boundary. Mom, I can't come over tonight, or I can't come to your home for the holidays. I have other things to do. I'll not keep addressing it with you. Or, Mom, we are choosing to do this or that as our way of life. And this or that may include how we discipline the kids, where we choose to live, what school we are going to send our kids to or not send our kids to, where we go to church, when we vacation and where we vacation and where we spend the holidays, and so on and so forth. You say, this is what it's going to be, and we're not going to talk about it anymore. And if you exceed those boundaries, then there are going to be consequences to that. Now, some of you may say, I need help with that. And if you need help, there are going to be other books in the future that will come out that will be real helpful. One right now that's extremely helpful to both men and women is this book called Boundaries. And we've got that in our bookstore, but I just want to recommend that to you as a way of educating yourself of how to draw boundaries that have healthy but clear consequences. And by the way, if you have a wife who struggles with her mom, okay, this is an excellent book that you might give to her as well. So those are the three things that the plan should include. Now, fourth, communicate your plan in one of the following ways to your mom and stand your ground regardless of how she responds. Here's the two ways you can do it. First, just through a new way of relating. Some of these things may just be mild issues. Because of the intensity level or lack of it, you may just say, you know, I'm going to change the way we do this. I'm going to tell Mom we're not coming to her house for Christmas. We're going to have our own Christmas. Our kids now are at an age where they need to be in their own setting. And by the strength of your voice and the way you say it, and the way you say it in an honoring way, your mom may all of a sudden realize she's dealing with a different person. And she may respond positive to that. She may not like it, but she goes, well, okay. And that begins to set the healthy boundary. So it's just a new way of relating. If you find that she doesn't respond that way, and she begins to emotionally punish you in one way or another or complain, then it may require this second step, and that is through a face-to-face meeting where you talk about these specific issues. And you sit down, and it's fairly dramatic, and you're going to feel the little boy in you want to take over. But you've got to put the little boy down and have the big man stand up. And you've got to say, this is the way it's going to be. And when those emotions and those appeals of love and what are you doing to your mama kind of feelings start flowing, you've got to stand there and not blink. And you got to say, this is the way it's going to be. And I love you, Mom. I really do. This is the way it's going to be. God has called me to leave and cleave to my wife, or God's called me to leave and cleave to Him, and I'm moving forward, not going backwards. Fifth, use the men in your life to report back to for clarity, encouragement, and accountability. I want you to know this is very helpful, especially if Mom chooses to battle with you, at least for a while, or to stay over involved or to punish you in some way. To make a healthy break with Mom in a number of cases is a process. It's not a one-time thing. It's a process. And that's why you need what I call male cheerleaders, which we'll talk about in the coming weeks. I had a dentist from Batesville call me the other day. He was in men's fraternity 2 years ago. We went through this session, and he couldn't do it. He couldn't do it. And here he is 2 years later, and the phone rings, and I pick it up, and he's on the other end. He said, you know when you talked about the mother wound 2 years ago? He says, I'm at the end of my rope. I'm ready to do it. Will you listen to my plan? But really, you know what he needed? He needed a cheerleader. He just needed another guy on the other end of the phone saying to him, you know, Jan, that's a good thing to do. Go do it. Said, your mom may struggle with that for a while, but you need to do that for you and for her. It's good for both of you, so you can become the kind of man that you need to be. Sixth, if you are married, listen closely, guys. If you are married, tell your wife, if you've got an over-involved mom in your life, tell your wife you recognize the problem with an interfering mom and that you will take responsibility to correct it. You're not going to let her get in the middle. Ask her for your support and prayer, but ask her not to get involved. It's your problem, not hers. If you'll do that, here's what will happen. Your wife will be relieved. She will respect and admire you as a man. It will keep the pressure where it needs to be on the primary relationship, that is between you and your mom, not her and your wife. It will cause your wife to feel loved by you in a much deeper way. And it will cause your wife to respect you as a man and admire your leadership over the family. And those are all good things. Those are real good things. And then finally, in some cases, your efforts to establish a healthy relationship with Mom will result in a time of emotional punishment or even your mom's angry withdrawal. My encouragement to you is do not be derailed by this, because in time she will adjust. I promise you. She will. In fact, let me give you a real life letter out of men's fraternity of a guy who did this very thing. He had had some real difficult relationships with his mother. Guy's 40 years old. His mom sent him some angry letters. This is his response to his mom in finally drawing up the plan, and then her response back to him. He said this to her, Dear Mom, I want to be honest with my feelings about you, so I will throw away my natural timidity and say what I think. Many aspects of your recent letter to me are like the worst aspects of our adult mother-son relationship this past 20 years. 2 words come to mind to describe this relationship: domination and manipulation. I feel that anytime I resist your dominant will, then your response is manipulative, particularly to induce the emotion of guilt in me. Oftentimes in the past, this has worked, although to no one's satisfaction. Hopefully, we can now break this cycle. I will continue to honor you as my mother, but I cannot fulfill your needs in any area. We can acknowledge this without going to the extreme of a totally cut-off relationship. I suggest to you that if you find our relationship very painful, then your expectations from it are not proper. I ask that we may have a right relationship as a mother to son before the Lord. Please recognize that as a grown man, I must follow the call to be a man, no longer tied to his mother. I must follow the biblical command to leave my parents' home and to cleave to my wife. And please don't use emotional manipulation techniques on me in the future, for I am planning to resist it from now on. This letter is from me, not from my wife. I plan to let Betty read it before I send it, but only myself and you can be accountable for our relationship. Betty is neither the cause nor the solution to our relational problems, and she never has been, although in the past you have blamed her as the cause. This will no doubt be a slow-moving struggle, but it's time to work on a new kind of relationship between us. I love you, and I await your reply. That's pretty good, isn't it? Here's his mom's reply. Dear son, maybe there is no legal means for you to get rid of me as your mother. Or as a mother-in-law, but I can sure try to make it easier for you to be free of me emotionally. I hereby grant you permission to forget I exist, or ever was, or ever will be a part of your life or the lives of your children. I realize that this is the way it is anyway, but just in case you occasionally feel burdened with the fact that I actually do exist and you have to put up with me, I want to remove that obstacle for you. I will admit that I am not doing this just for you and the kids, as I am truly weary of the hostility and rejection, as well as the shattered hopes and dreams I had for us. I have waited so long for us to be friends, the kind of friends that I believe we once were. It's not easy to say goodbye to such an important part of my life, but you have really left me no choice. With all the love I hold in my heart for you both, your ex-mom. P.S. I know how Jesus felt when he spoke in Matthew 23, "Oh, how I've longed to gather you together as a hen gathers her chicks under her wings, but you were not willing." That's tough, isn't it? But you know what? He hung in there. And you want to hear the good news? His mom adjusted. And she got back a man as well as a son. Now, I want to take a hard right just for a moment. That's in relationship to men and their mothers. And I want to speak just for a couple of minutes, and I'm going to close. I want to speak to you as dads with your sons in these final couple of points. The critical need today is for fathers to call their teenage sons away from dependency on mom to manhood. I'm only going to mention this briefly. You just tuck this away. This is a little addendum free of charge. Dads, your teenage sons need to be called away from mom. And what that means is that mom is not going to wake them up in the morning. Mom is not going to take them out and buy their clothes for them anymore. Mom's not going to cover for their mistakes at school. Mom is not going to become the counselor of their boyfriend-girlfriend relationships. Mom is not going to be setting appointments for their haircut. Mom's not going to be paying their bills. There comes a place where you, Dad, need to call your son to you and away from mom. And he needs to set his own alarm. And if he wants to go out and buy clothes, you need to take him. Or you need to tell him to go do it himself. And let his hair grow over his ears if necessary until he decides it's time for him to get a haircut. It's not time for mom to be mom to a teenage son in a way that she's caring like he's in elementary school. It's time for him to grow up. And you need to be calling him into authentic manhood. Now you go, well, how do I do that? That's what this year is about. We're going to ask you, those of you who are dads who have teenage sons, they can join us for the second half. But what I want you to hear me say now is The face of a son, when he hits his teenage years, needs to start turning to dad. And you need to call him away from mom. 3 things about that. First, this call away needs to be clear and direct. You need to say, son, come join me as a man. And you need to be able to define what manhood is. You say, well, I don't have a definition. Listen, if you'll stick with me the whole year, you will have a definition. And it'll be clear, and I think it'll be exciting to you. And you'll be able to call your son to it as you pursue it for yourself. Secondly, this call away needs to be embraced by the son, the dad, and the mom to be effective. And so there's probably going to have to be a discussion with mom about where she needs to back off as he moves into his teenage years. Thirdly, this call away needs to employ ceremony. A ceremony or a series of ceremonies that are signposts that this son is stepping into manhood. And you know what the best way for a son to find out he's a man? It's for his dad to be with some other men and they call him into manhood. And we're going to talk about how to do ceremonies in the second half of men's fraternity. And it'll be some of the finest days of your son's lives if you'll do them. But that's for later. Well, let me close with 2 final comments. Here's the first. Let me just say again, the legs of masculinity, whether they're weak or strong, on which a man stands, they're established at home. And for the legs here, by the way, that are good and strong and healthy, can I just encourage you as men, if you have good, strong, healthy legs because of your family of origin, would you give thanks for that? And whether it's at Thanksgiving or Christmas or a holiday or a birthday, would you get up in your mom and dad's face and say, thanks? And praise them for the good work that they did when you were growing up. For those who have legs here that are hurting and shaky or maybe missing altogether, then my admonition and exhortation to you is that you would take responsibility for that. And then do this. Go out into the world, even with those hurts, bruises, or amputations, and show the world a miracle. Stand up and be a man. You can do it because others have done it. You're not the first, nor the last. Then finally, I want you to say, as a way of exhortation, as something I introduced to you in about the 3rd session, start working on your manhood plan right now. This is the time, right now, to pull out that plan that I gave you, that outline, and start working on that plan. Take it out and decide how you're going to handle this absent father wound and make up for it if you have it. Or how you're going to address the overly bonded with mother wound and make the break from it if you need to. It's time to start. Look at me, guys. It's time to start right now. And remember, because this is the foundational principle of the whole first half of men's fraternity. So let me just say it again. Just remember, how you unpack this unfinished business will, to a large degree, determine the kind of man that you will be. That's what you need to hear. Now, as of today, we're going to leave the past. As of this session, we're leaving our family of origin. And next week, we're going to turn to present circumstances, and we're going to look at how present circumstances shape our manhood right now, every day. Our friends, our mentors or our lack of mentors, our perspectives on life, our beliefs, our convictions, our relationship with God. All that in the next few weeks.